We have to win rounds also in other ways, and people, some people, they use their equipment and use it, and it's 50 seconds they don't have the equipment, but then 80% of the time, one player would do a 4K multi-kill or something, I mean, but it's not the case always for us. I mean, we have, me coming from the academy. Of course, we have Tabson. Being long time. Holy shit! Last time I saw, he's so long around. Like, it's actually crazy. I didn't even realize. And Sin Pros is coming up. They need to also feel how it is to play Tier 1. First lance, whatever. And I think we need to grind rounds more with, also that's why we do it with utility and with smartness, or being greedy, not using nades. Then someone else would maybe do it, but would get a kill more. Let's say how it is. Let's say like this. But yeah, I would definitely say that we are still more of a tactical team than other teams.
Okay, so it's still like it's a fairly fair characterization of you guys and how you play. Okay, I wanted to get some of your like big picture thoughts on the space. That's generally what I do on this show with like other analysts and things like that. But I wanted to get into the HLTV top 20 and your thoughts on any of the positions so far. Because as of the time of recording this, I'm gonna just publish this right after. The 20 through 10 spots have been released, so I'll give you time to like bring up the list and what you think of it.
Two bottom.
First of all, as I will continue to glaze you, yeah, could have been you at number 20, but that's okay.
I mean, it's fair, man. Like, we won shit this year, Like, we played in Brazil on stage. We didn't qualify for Paris. Didn't play Sydney. We didn't play Abu Dhabi. We didn't play fall finals at Blast. It's a lot of events. Like, it's not counting when we play good against online teams. These numbers are not really, they don't really care. Of course, they're good games, but yeah, it's definitely fair.
Yo, I'm fried. I'm hitting everything.
Where's the list? Do you have a link?
Oh yeah, I'll send you. Right I'm sending you it on Twitter, just literally because if I
open for
Discord,
sure.
Sunday night's hitting like that.
But so basically, so my biggest gripe with it, and I'm gonna make this public because this is kind of my biggest statement right now, is that I don't think Frozen should be 12. I thought Frozen was a top 7 player in 2023. So I first want to ask you about what you think of him, and do you think 12 is a fitting position for him?
I also think he was higher. I also think it was like, I also did a kinda list. I didn't write it down or something. I think he was around like also 7 or 8 in my list. I mean, I think he's definitely a really good player. Also insane good late round player. But I don't know why he's on 12 actually. Like, it also was a bit confusing for me because I think Down is still coming, right?
Yes, Down's still coming, and I thought Frozen's definitely above Down.
I also thought he's about, no hate like against the players, of course, but
of course.
I think Frozen had a better year than Down, but Down also had a good year, that won. But Mouse also won Pro League and played a lot playoffs, LAN events.
Yes.
Same as Heroic, but I felt like also statistic-wise, I didn't look up the numbers. Also, Frozen was better than the players coming now, but I don't know what counts in and what not, so it's hard to say.
Yo, Duty
But for me, as
I want this
top
guy to
player,
win this clutch.
Like, just say top 20 players of 2023, I would put Frozen definitely
20
around
seconds.
like 7.
Has the pre-fire.
Okay.
1v4 turns to 1v2 quick. Alex on the angle. Just get shit.
Took so much issue with him being 12, or basically not a top 10 player, because even I know that I might lightly overrate him if I'm trying to be purely objective, but in terms of what I value, that's why I had him at 7. And I could have been okay with being like 8th, maybe 9th. Because of course, obviously, you're an exceptional player yourself. Who are pros that you look at, watch demos,
I really like to watch
one's bottom ramp,
Nerds,
at least one.
because he's also playing kind of my
No,
positions,
definitely
let's say.
several.
For example, Flame F or Frozen are not playing my position mostly, especially in CT. But they play the roles, for example, Thompson is playing right now. And
No.
I don't watch them a lot, but I would definitely say Nerds because he's a more aggressive player than me. And it's also just cool to see why or like just how he does it, you know. But he also can play the passive, like the normal lurk, let's say, can also play really good. But he has more of that aggressive side of him that I also definitely look out for. But in general, maybe I'm forgetting anyone.
Oh shit,
but
Keith slays.
look
Ah.
at
Oh.
the list. But
I'd say like
in general,
Gonna pick up the ace here.
compare
Will
yourself
he
to, I
be
wouldn't
able to spot
like
where
those- the
Mori's
other
coming
rifles that are gonna
from?
come up are
The
gonna
timing's not
stay
on his side. The
strong
light. Oh,
down.
R.I.P.
yeah,
But
yeah,
Mori
of
makes a
course,
step.
I'm
Oh
just
my
looking
god.
at the top 20 list and I'm like the 10 to of course I
Yeah.
like
Crazy.
especially
How do you
Spinks and
almost
Robs as
throw
well,
that if you're
because,
Mori?
like for sure, like if you're a lurker you watch them of course because they're the best lurkers this year. Like they played outstanding, both of them.
Who
Yeah,
is better?
definitely.
Who do you think's better? Spencer,
Bam. I think Robs is better because I think Spinks, Robs is playing this role now for years and years and is so experienced in it. And there's also, so much sample size. And I think Spinks is growing really fast. He's playing
I hit
better
one with
and
a
better,
deagle
you know?
now. Nice.
When he, I think back in the days when he was
One more down there.
he
I'm
became
helping
that
with it.
player in Ents. I don't think exactly know anymore.
Yeah, I think
Oh,
He became that kind of player in Ensa. You know, I don't
At least
think
two
he was
minutes.
it before, you know, and Robs has been his player for all his life now, you know. It's also a difference. And I think Robs has that here. But yeah, Robs, Spinks, I would like to watch Nerds. I think these are my
Damn, dude.
three
Why does that
go-tos.
have to be the
I
bomb?
don't think. Yeah, Robs and Spinks. Yeah, I was thinking about I'm missing anyone.
Well, Nico's gonna be like number 2, but do you take anything from Nico's gameplay? Because you guys have pretty different styles.
Judge Dredd on the
Yeah, we
late
have,
mid lurk.
like, I
Could be
like
huge.
to watch like, in general also some face it
They got one
demos
side,
from
One and
they got
done.
the other
good
side.
players, you know, just to see, you know, how they
Mori
peek,
clips
how
her
they
head off.
use the Yuta,
Sonic
you
with
know,
3K.
how they play in a 3v3.
Really good
because
post playing,
playing in a
gotta go fast.
3v3 doesn't matter what position
Spots out
you
Mori.
play, you know. Just
Yeah,
also
but
Dude, he's
just
gonna
having-
take this, but it's not
having new
planted for them.
ideas, you know,
Ah,
not
it doesn't
from
matter.
Players who play my position or
Nice try.
maybe just as I said, just a face it demo, not
Nah,
a
they
real,
miss,
real
trust.
game demo. Because also on face it, people tend to kinda show their game as well. You know, maybe even review new stuff. Or also, some I don't know,
Yo, I'm flashing ramp.
some-
Let's push this.
let's say Russians who are just grinding every day. You know, 12 games a day. They also some
Ah.
that's really good things. But from these players, like especially in
Yo, no
X
one's
on
calling.
X
We got
positions,
bomb
you
ramp.
can also learn a
We
lot,
are
you know,
keeping
what
bomb
position they take,
control.
where they
No!
rotate, maybe where his teammate rotates and stuff like this.
That flash was so good, but they were five.
That's something that I actually feel like.
Bomb
I
squad
remember
doing
when I was
God's
like,
work.
tier 2
Let's
Mark,
go!
that I would
Bang up it.
back when ESCA used to have RWS. I would.
Oh, he's on for 4. Can he get the
I
5th?
watch Breeze demos and I watch.
Oh, he's on it! He gets 5
Bomb down.
from sandbags
Way that fucker.
to anchor the fucking game.
Because they were just.
Yo, well done, Bomb Squad.
That I would just try to steal
Thank
their
you.
little nade sets and things like
That's
that.
good.
Because they're making
Yeah.
so many individual plays that just work out for them, or they know how to call like for one flash basically, and then that's all they need to activate themselves. So that's actually a really interesting idea, and I feel like actually the only other person I've really heard talk about that was when I talked to Yakindar, how he said that he used to try things a lot in Face It, take things from people in Face It, and it kind of probably goes a little bit under the radar because everybody just thinks like, you know, it's all top tier demos and everything like that, but it actually is weirdly like for little single solo plays, Face It people are that's
definitely.
like, that's all they do, yeah.
Like, let's say you play a practice game, you know, and it's like in the Face It you can, it's okay if it's not working, but let's say you play a practice game and you want to definitely get a really good sample. You don't want to play it one round, you want to play it often and often, you know. Then you don't do it at a practice game because your teammates are maybe gonna suffer from it when it doesn't work, let's say. You know, it's like beginning of round 45 or having not that much util in the end, how you used to be, like, I don't know what the kind of stuff that is you're trying, but that's why I also like to, like, as I said, like to watch it, because people try something maybe new, have some new mates, you know, and Face It. They want to try maybe, is it good here? Or just, you know, just from the, it's just, how do you say it, subconscious?
Yeah, well, yeah.
Maybe it's just subconscious, you know, you
Like
throw
with
it
me.
in prac the whole time, it's new stuff. You just go and Face It, maybe you're a bit fried or something, you know, you just go there, throw the smoke, do your move, do a new move, you know, don't really think about it. And then you see these things, so I think it's also what has been real cool to see, how many players are grinding more than they have been in CSGO. Now, since CS2 is
Where
out,
you wanna go?
you know, you see more
Kids are
and
going
more
heavy?
Yo,
playing Face
They
It the
got
whole day
Toast
when
Malone
they
on
have
their squad. We're winning
like a
this,
free
boys.
day, let's
That guy
say.
went like
Because
4 and
it's
it's a
14
new game, you
last
have to
game.
put more hours, and you can't
Hell yeah.
like just rely on your CSGO skill to be good in CS2, because it's just a different engine,
more.
let's just say. It's just a different game, and many have been grinding a lot, and I think it's definitely paying off right now at the stage of the game.
Carrot donut. I got a
Okay, I
main.
wanted to also bring up the fact that this is another news thing that is basically just that Blast has incorporated 5 new teams.
Where'd he go?
The
I don't know, man.
they've
It's
expanded
just
to
too
2016, and the teams that they changed were
Donut.
obviously well, first off was that EG or Cloud9 took EG's spot, and then they added four more teams on top of that. Spirit, Gamer Legion, VP, and Falcons. The first thing I actually just want to flat out ask you: have you scrimmed Falcons?
No, we haven't. I don't know. I think they practiced one time when they were in. I think they were in boot camp in Denmark or something. While this, I
Going
think they
over to
played
Dread.
with the old. Like Sonic kinda. I think if you remember, Sonic said we're gonna give everybody a fair chance.
Yes.
You remember that?
Yeah.
I think they definitely did, because I heard they were in a boot camp in Copenhagen with Snappy and the rest of the team, and they scrimmed a lot. And you know,
Okay, looks clear.
they saw how everybody is doing and stuff, so they just didn't say it. You know, we give
Why is
everybody
nobody
a fair chance,
fucking
and they
joining
just
the
kick
game?
the half of the
Wow.
team. You know,
Yeah, it'll
That's how it looked from the
it'll pop
outside.
up.
that's
Okay.
also
Usually
what
has
I
to be, like,
expected. But when I heard it, I
at
was
least
like,
4
okay,
rounds
that's cool.
Yeah.
And since then, I think they were on a break,
I wanna
because they
kill
now
bots,
also have that
someone
RMR
might be on
spot.
COD.
Right,
Okay,
because they have the ENS trio, so they don't have to play open. I think since then, you know, it was end of Abu Dhabi, they announced Sampaios and Marden.
Yep.
I think since then there have been a kind of more break, because their next tournament is
There we
in
go.
2-3 weeks with the Blast coming up now. They don't have to play RMR open or closed. So let's see, maybe the next weeks then.
Okay, so talking about some of the other teams, let's dive into Spirit first. Let's talk about Spirit a little bit.
EP, Falcon, Spirit, yeah.
So
Give
Spirit
it to
right
a
now,
bot.
they've signed Shiro, so people haven't really seen their new lineup. Or actually, Spirit once they've signed Shiro, or
No. Really, I think I played a lot Face It against Shiro, and like
okay.
Monacy, Shiro, or Tontix, Donk, you know, they also play a lot.
Yeah, yeah.
And but I don't think also they have been practicing yet.
Okay.
Maybe I can look up my calendar. Maybe you have some pracs already set. But you can talk on.
Okay, so the main thing about Spirit that
Yeah.
everybody keeps talking about, and yeah, from your perspective, is Donk, and what? So Donk now has won the Bet Boom LAN recently, and that was people's first time really seeing him on LAN. He did exceptionally well, especially in the grand finals when they did the reverse sweep against VP. So, from your perspective, what makes Donk such an exciting player?
I think one big thing is his mentality, because he knows he works more than other people do, and he puts more hours in the game, and he's not scared to do mistakes. He's just hungry for more, you know, hungry for killing more. He doesn't think about what if I die here and stuff. You will just kill him, you know. I think that's a big aspect, and also with CS2 coming out, like the white strings and stuff, it's also a big thing that you know, that helps him with his game style, I would say. But it's just insane to see that he's just grinding, and you know, he works probably more, plays more than most of the others. So he also knows, you know, like he, you know, everyone has that kind of like that dog in them, let's say.
Yeah, sure.
So he knows, like, this guy is not working more than me, you know, like, come at me, I have every answer, you know, or if not, I will just kill you, like stuff like this. But yeah, he's like just a really exceptional player, definitely. Also really, really kind guy. Like he's not the guy like who, you know, who is like has a big ego or something. You know, he's a really kind guy. I talked a lot with him, and he is, you know, he's just like Germany, or how do we say it? He's not arrogant or something. Like he's just a kid who likes to play CS, you know, and is now playing in a really, really good team, and is destroying tier 1 team. So he's just enjoying life, and I don't think anything will change that. Like I don't even think money will change his mentality, because it's
Damn,
just,
didn't know
you know,
people
it's
really
like,
didn't like Ancient this much.
he just loves to play the game. You know, he's 16, I think, still, right?
Yeah,
I
I
don't
don't mind
think so. I
it.
don't think he's turned 7.
Ancient's
yeah,
not
sick
yeah,
too.
I'm pretty sure he's 16. So.
You know, it's just
Yeah, he is.
just really
True.
cool to see. And
So-
also, like, yeah, I think it motivates other players as well.
You're like, fuck it.
Okay.
You know,
that's-
like seeing
map.
him play so much and not stopping. You know, even if I think they lost after they lost versus us in CCT final.
Yeah.
I think 30 minutes later he streamed Face It. You know, it's just really cool to see.
So he's, I mean, that's actually kind of interesting. I feel like one of the interviews that he did with HLTV, he did expect a lot out of himself. So, but he's balancing like, he knows he's really good, and that's why he plays the way he does. But it's not to the point of arrogance where it's overtaking his personality and it's just too much or anything like that.
I died.
Like, actually, I'll just ask, like, what context did you
Yeah,
talk
that
to, like,
happens.
were you, yeah,
Oh my
I
god.
mean,
I
just
got triple teamed
because
by
I also
bots
play a lot of
last game,
Facets,
I
and
fucking
also
died.
with some other Russians. So sometimes, you know, he was around. You know, we just chatted. You know, but I don't think we played in a stack. No, we didn't play. But yeah, just, you know, just chatting, just knowing each other. I was talking a lot with Atros, like a few months ago, like, and also other players. This Team Space, for example, I've been playing a lot Faceit with them, and also like many people are there, like Norbert, Fame, and stuff on the TeamSpeak. So it just kinda got rolling. I don't know.
Okay. Do you think there's still any, this is something that's kind of like a throwback question, I guess, is that the way we used to talk about teams was so region-specific, like, oh, this team plays like this, or a Russian team plays like that, or whatever, you know, like, you could usually look at a region and say they have a certain style to them. Do you think that still exists?
I would not. I would say, for example, like back in the days, like when you said the Danish
Maybe I
team
lied.
plays like this, it was like a few years ago. Definitely, you can say it, like with the Astralis era and stuff. But right now, I feel like what I can say is definitely when you can say how a Russian team most of the time plays, it's like really solid coach CS, you know? No one, you know, you save nades, you play as a team, and you know, like the VP CS, let's say it like this.
Yeah.
You know, I think it's the best example, like you just play as a team. You don't do a lot of moves, you know, you just try to win the game every round as a team. You know, of course, everyone had like Split, Fame, Jame, they will all have like here a clutch here, maybe a double kill here and stuff, you know, but everything they do is most of the time structured and it's like planned. So I would say you can definitely say this, but then on the other side you have Team Bad Boom, like where you have Zorte playing XM or P90 like so many times on the LAN. So it's I think everything changed a bit, and you can't really say it anymore. Like I think
Yeah.
most of the teams has, of course, they have tendencies to what they do. That's what I want to say. Tendencies. I
Yeah.
somehow fucked it up, but that's I think every team has everything, and most of the teams can also adapt their game. You know, a VP has also a flit, or who can go for more aggressive stuff, right?
You're blowing all your
Yeah,
money
yeah,
when
of
you
course,
don't
of course.
have
And I
money.
think
You
that's
can't take care of
also
your own
that's
life. You started your bank accounts
what
with
helped
nothing.
Spirit
You
in a
refused
way,
to get a
because I
job that
think
will
they were
accept you,
also
like the
like
autoworker
this,
job that did
and they
accept you,
didn't
and then
have
you
a
decided not to
flashy
do it for
player
whatever
back
reason.
then when
Dude,
they would
there
play
are
with.
people with felonies
They had
working in
Patsy,
fast food. I promise you could do it with a
um,
misdemeanor B.
and
And just
Wonderful
now
it was,
somebody's
right?
gonna be like, "Oh, you think you're a
Thing with
smart
Patsu,
kid?"
they were
And I
also
am. I
really
have a
good.
degree in information systems. So if I see
But
a
then he
way to
decided
improve
to go to
something,
Liquid, and
I'm
then
gonna
they were
suggest
like
it.
kinda
And they got this degree in information
in a
systems, and
slump,
no
I
one
think.
cares.
And I think the addition of Donk and the Academy
Who
players
cares?
also
Time on, man.
motivated, like for example, a Chopper or something, you know? Like it's, you know, you just see
We
your
don't, no,
three
no,
of
we
your
don't
teammates
care.
playing a
We
lot,
don't.
you know, and you are also around long time, and
It's
this kinda got them back the fire maybe, like being in a seeing, you know, just your three young teammates play the all time. Doesn't matter if you lose, doesn't matter if you win. I think that's these things inspire them a lot, and that's why they're on the rise.
Okay. So, actually, you know what? Okay, how about this? Because I feel like a lot of the European teams, like you're saying, are kind of like, sure they have tendencies, but maybe like Eastern European teams have their own style that's still a little bit specific to them. You have played a few Brazilian teams lately in Pain, MIBR. Does it feel significantly different to play against them versus European teams?
Um, it's sometimes hard because you like if a Brazilian team isn't around Europe the whole time, it's hard to expect what you can expect from them. I think they also have like every team has a bit, you know, their own philosophy, let's say. Like this team tries to play here more aggressive, the other team likes to play here more defensive.
Today, I will
So
be
I
showing
think,
how
but in
broken ops
general,
on ancient both T
um,
and CT sides, as well as covering
all
offering
teams
protocols.
kinda like especially
Essential
Brazil. When I
ancient
think about
mates and
Furia,
material guides, so
MIBR,
you don't end up like this player who
also
misses an
Pain,
important mid
they
split.
have
This aid guide will
not
help
that
you become an
like
ancient global expert. Let's get
not that
started. If you're smoke from spawn, go
extraordinary
ahead and stand at the top.
philosophy to other teams.
Mm.
You know, I think right now it's most of the time like if we compare our team to them, I would also say it's not a big difference. Like it's I think every team has everything, and it's not that big of a difference right now.
Okay. Yeah, I just kind of bring it up because I do feel like with the way that CS has gone, especially kind of in the new, I'd say the last 4-ish years or so, like it feels like a lot of teams are starting to everybody's kind of just taking from each other so constantly now that
Yeah, for sure.
regional styles are a little bit less, like you said, there's some tendencies still there, but it's a lot less obvious than back in the day when it was like, oh, okay, we know that this whole region, like Brazil would play a weirdly aggressive style, and do a lot of seemingly solo random plays. And now I think everybody, I think it's just kind of a refinement of everybody's style that is just kind of the best way to play CS. Which kind of makes me, well, I want to actually move up from that to like some of the top teams, like who, because we talked about players already as well of who you looked at. What teams do you find you and Big for that matter looking at to try to take from, say, in the top 5? Are you stealing more from G2? I mean, are you stealing from FaZe? You looking at Vitality stuff? What, like, who do you think? Actually, I'll make the question even more direct. Who have you learned the most from of those teams?
Oh, like handling wise and like defensive wise, I think VP is always good to watch because like they always know like they are not getting caught off guard or something, you know. If they hit something, they have a plan. For example, CT wise now, and also how they default as a T. It's also, I think every team like needs to have also like a, how we say in English, needs to have a bit idea of the VP style in their game, because sometimes your move don't work and stuff like this, and they really know how to default. But I think in other aspects, Vitality is playing extraordinary right now. They're playing really good. I think Apex is calling insane. The strategies they have and when they play it has been on point versus like the best teams in the world. So they're like, if I have to pick one, I would choose Vitality 100%.
Okay. So
You know, Zyvo playing. I saw a lot of. When I looked at my phone, I had like 50 tabs open. I had like HLTV, I had like Twitter, I had like everything open. And then I had one tab from Maui Snake, Zyvo Cultural Impact.
okay.
And I was like, what the fuck? Like, because I saw you always say because he's not like, he didn't leave his mark or something, like with the, like Simple has his flashy place, you mean like this?
Okay, you
Oh,
want
how you said it? Like I don't remember.
It was before, especially before the Paris Major, and well, just kind of in terms of flashy playstyle, it wasn't really there. I have seen so much more from him in the last 6 months. That he's just shown. Practically speaking, when watching Zywoo pre-2023, it was a lot of, he's doing the right play defensively a lot of the time, and so he would have these really nice holds, for example, but in terms of taking initiatives consistently, I mean, he wasn't at that same level of Simple, where he was just like, Simple just runs at people, he just takes over games, he just like, runs at people, basically. So, in a way, and I also feel like it was hard to characterize Zywoo's playstyle other than you would just kind of use the general term like perfect. He just made a lot of really strong plays, but when you looked at some of the people of the past that were very culturally impactful, they had such obvious ways that they played that made them unique. Like Nico would one-tap people, Jane would just save way more than anybody else. And in a way, sometimes a player's flaws define them because you see them do something and it's a little bit ridiculous. Like Simple probably was a little bit too aggressive when he was playing in 2017 and 2018. But then he made his weakness into a strength, and for Zywoo, it was so defensive in nature and so kind of like he's trying to save the round for his team so often that it wasn't necessary. It didn't pop off the page in terms of so many moments because he was so good. I felt like what Zywoo was weirdly so good at is getting 2 kills in a round. Like 2 kills that just seemed kind of unremarkable. But when Simple would get 2 kills, it was always like, oh my god, why would anybody but Simple do that? And so that's, yeah, so I'm glad you asked that.
I think like in case of Zyvo, I think it was also like just a few months, like between also CSGO and CS2, right? What you mentioned, or was it before?
I said it before. I said it.
Ah, okay. Yeah, I don't know, but I think like in terms of cultural impact, I think he is one of the best, if not the best, when he plays aggressive, it will work, and when he's playing defensive, we will do the most kills.
Yeah.
Like I think you can say it like this. I can't think of anyone else right now who has that high of a percentage to that this aggressive move will succeed, or when he decides to play defensive, he will, you know, win you the round alone on the side.
Hmm.
I think it's hard to compare him right now with the other oppers.
Yeah, yeah. It is without any question at all that ZywOo is the best player, and I would even say it's by a pretty decent margin too. Because if I think of who do you think today is the second best player?
Poor. ZywOo is definitely the best player right now. Like
Yeah.
there's no question. And I would. It's hard. I don't think maybe it's even an opera, right? Maybe it's
you're right.
maybe it's Nico or Robs,
Yeah.
or maybe even Spinks.
Hmm.
I feel like, you know, when Simple hasn't been around anymore, it's like there is not a flashy, like there's not another opera like a flashy star opera right now. No, of course you have Brokey,
Yeah.
but you know he's definitely around the top 5 for me, 100%. But it's not that clear, I would say. Like when I look at the list, it's hard to say.
I think Nico's gonna be the second best player of 2023, but I don't.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't.
I think
necessarily think. Okay.
I think I made a top 5.
Mhm.
Like because I'm sometimes chatting in the HATV threads with some random people.
You are.
You know, there was a thread Crimbo come here. There was a thread about Germany. You know,
Yeah.
I'm just chatting with them. You know, because I grew up with this threads thing. I have my account for like 5 years or something.
Yeah.
And you know, I was like, because it's also sometimes fun because, you know, they talk so much shit or
I know,
whatever. You know,
I know.
it's just fun to chat. This guy said he has my WhatsApp number. Wait, he will write in whatever. And I think my top 5 was ZywOo, Nico, Robs, Binks, and who am I forgetting?
Uh, would you put Monacy
Wait,
there?
And Monacy, yeah, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
I think, yeah, I have it here, right? Bro, I even have a verified check mark now.
On HLTV?
Yeah. I have
Yeah,
ZywOo, Nico. No, I have actually ZywOo, Nico, Spinks, Robs, Monacy.
yeah, that sounds more like
Yeah.
I would actually put it in the same 5 order for myself for
Because I
2023.
think the fact that they won the major, and he has been well the whole, like, it's hard to say, like, Spinks. I think no one would be shocked if Robs would be above Spinks or the other way around, you know. I think
Yeah,
it's
it's kind of 50-50.
I think the fact they won that much events this year, that's why I put him above him. But whatever.
Yeah, in terms of as an individual, I today would take Robs over Spinks, but in terms of the year that they had, it's hard for me not to put Spinks there because I actually
Yeah, probably.
I think I don't know if they win those events with any other person but ZywOo, but like they would be really close to doing it if Spinks were the best player and ZywOo were 10% worse. I think they still could win a lot of stuff.
Yeah,
so,
for sure.
Yeah.
100%. But when you look at FaZe, it's like when if Robs is not that around, like of course, okay, now it's a bit, now they're frozen. But if like Robs wasn't there 100%, and you know also like when the others are also not that around, it's hard for FaZe, I would say. I think Robs is a guy you can always, same as Spinks, you can always rely on,
Mhm.
but they don't have like the ZywOo in the team. Let's say it like this.
Yeah. Okay, we hit the hour mark here. Actually, let's just go on to what's coming up next for you guys. So, what is big? What's your guys' next event?
It's the RMR close qualifier actually. It's
Okay.
in 12 days, I think. Yeah, and I don't know how, but the RMR close is ending at January 21, and Blast is starting January 22.
Right. Right.
So I don't really know how this is gonna work, but
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
we will see.
Sure. Sure. Okay. For self-promotion purposes, do you want to like what do you want to plug? Your Twitter or 'cause
My Twitter? Oh, yeah, what do you mean in the description?
yeah. Well, I'm just closing this out. So, like, I mean, anything you want to shout out in terms of like your social media or anything like that.
I'm streaming more right now actually. I think I streamed 4 days in a row now because Mantu was marrying, like they had
Oh
his
yeah.
wedding.
Uh-huh.
So I was just streaming the whole time. Of course, would be always. Sometimes I do banger posts, even with Maui Smack in the tweet. So yeah, for sure. My Twitter, my Insta, I think it's Crumbo CS and CS:GO or something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's always my pleasure.
Yeah, I mean, thanks for hopping on, Crimbo. I mean, it's always a pleasure to talk to you and just catch up on stuff that's going on with you, your team, and the scene in general. So, appreciate you taking the time to hop on this
Sure, man.
podcast. I'm sure we'll do another one. We'll probably do a check. We'll do a checkup probably next player break, man. At the very,
Yeah,
at
for
the
sure.
latest, at the latest.
Maybe we can also do one we do a LAN podcast.
Oh,
An event or
please,
something.
please, yes.
Maybe someone else will come.
Yeah. We'll
Like-
do. Yes, we'll bring in.
Yeah.
We'll do another episode live. The next event that we work, I'm just gonna tell everybody the next event that you and I are both at, we're gonna do an in-person podcast, and we're gonna bring somebody on. We're gonna bring somebody else on, do a little three-way, and it's gonna be good.
That's sick.
So thank you so much, Crimbo. Be sure everybody to follow him on Twitter. Actually, check out his Twitch if he's streaming. If he's streaming this much, check him out on Twitch if anything. And I'll catch you next
I
time.
also, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I also have a TikTok actually now.
You have a TikTok.
I
don't
have
even
a
have-
TikTok.
I don't even have
channel now.
TikTok, so I don't. Okay,
Yeah,
but-
I think TikTok's numbers are booming. Like I don't know, like
Yeah.
when you it's crazy, but there's also good content for sure.
Uh-huh.
I actually rushed, A on Anubis yesterday with a P90, and I heard a song like this Chippy Chippy Choppa Choppa. You know this one?
I don't know that one, no.
You know this one? Okay, fuck. That's a bit cringe now. I think you should end it now.
Okay. All right. As always, being toxic is a choice.
Wait, okay, do you think the counter tilt happens now? Wait, it always does this shit, right? It'll go like...
Surf's up. We are here with another episode of the Maui Snake Show, and I have such an honor to bring you a veteran, a pioneer of the esports space. It's Jason Lake, the founder and CEO of Complexity. Thank you so much for making time in your busy schedule, Jason, to
Absolutely.
hop on.
Of course. My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
So I want to go way back to start this off. I need people to know just how much of a trailblazer you really are in this space. You were the founder of Complexity 20 years ago in 2003, and I want to know first off, what sparked the interest to try to make esports feel big time, to make it feel like showtime? Because you were one of the first people that was basically investing all of your time to make it above and beyond just a 5-man lineup, just playing Counter-Strike, showing up whenever. You wanted to make this feel as professional as possible.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I've told the story before, but generally, I grew up an American football player, and my family played in lots of different sports. My brother almost went professional in baseball. He played at Arizona in college. So I came from a sporting family, very competitive. But I also grew up really addicted to video games, man. Like, I'm giving my age away even more, but I go back to the Atari days and the Nintendo days, and I was around kind of at the birth of the internet. But as I got into college and law school, I really wasn't playing many video games at all, and I got out of law school. I was taking some time off and traveling and just kind of partying. hanging out before I started my law practice. And I walked into a friend's apartment one night in this high rise in Atlanta that we were living in, get ready to go out for the night and chase ladies. And he was playing this game on his PC, and I'm like, "What the hell is that?" And he's like, "Oh, it's called Counter Strike." And I'm like, "Wow, that's crazy." So I downloaded the game, started playing, was instantly hooked. I mean, this was when I think I still had a 56K dial-up. It was early days, um, and I would just love the game, and I was addicted to the game, playing Op Map, playing Pool Day and Ice World, and all these old school maps. Aztec was actually my favorite way back in the day.
You don't want to say that too loudly.
Yeah, right. But yeah, so I just decided that I skipped a step. And then I discovered there was already competitions. There's QuakeCon on Quake, and CPL was running competitions, and I'm like, wait a minute, the Swedish players are coming over here and playing this team at the time called Team 3D, and I'm like, and it was like a light bulb moment for me. It was like the meeting of my very competitive nature and my absolute adoration and love for video games. And I've always kind of been an entrepreneur. I was always a kid, at the lemonade stands and going to business conferences, kind of like a nerd in ninth grade. And I was always an entrepreneur. So when I realized I had an intersection of two things I was really passionate about, my first thought was my light bulb moment was like, we can turn this into a business. And really at the time, the sport was so young. It was very much a hobby more than a business, especially in North America. I think Europe was definitely a little ahead of ours. So I fired up an LLC and started hiring professional gamers and just kept improving the level of gamers until we were winning world championships. And I guess you could say the rest is history. But yeah, that culmination of my passion for competition and love of video games and kind of a light bulb entrepreneurial moment is really what led to the birth of Complexity. And it was 20 years ago this summer, like you said. So we've been doing this for a little while, and you know, or building a brand like this over decades has been really interesting, and I'll be able to reminisce a little bit with you here today because I've seen so many brands like just come out, big explosion of fireworks, just going crazy and spending tons of money and just all guts and glory, and they're gone. I've seen so many people here come in with all this just like massive talk of world domination, and they're gone, probably in crypto or something now. So I'm proud of the fact that me and my gaming family collectively have been able to last this long. We've, for the last call it 5, 10 years, we haven't been the biggest brand, we haven't been the flashiest brand, we haven't had nonstop merch drops or whatever. But I've always considered this very much a marathon more than a sprint. And of course, we want to provide a compelling product for our fans. Of course, we want to be as competitive as humanly possible in a difficult ecosystem where there's no salary caps, and whoever spends the most money, quite frankly, can often hoist the most trophies. But Complexity's always been a brand that's been built on professionalism. We try to do things with integrity to the very best of our ability, and we have a very long-term perspective. Maybe because I'm so old and I'm still, guiding the ship. But even now, I was watching your podcast with Richard Lewis. You're talking about some of the new big upstart, very highly funded orgs. Like I always sit back and just kind of smirk and say, well, let's see what happens. If you're going to come out and burn 100 million, 200 million bucks in 3 or 4 years, can you create a sustainable business? Can you create a sustainable sports property that's going to last generations? And that's really what I want for Complexity, is to be a generational sports property. And I think we're building that. It's tough out there right now, as everyone knows, but very proud to have made it 20 years at the very least.
Yeah, congratulations for that, because like you were mentioning, there have been so many organizations that just come out guns a-blazing. They want to try to make a mark on the space immediately before thinking about how do they actually create a revenue stream. They might actually find some really big investors, but I think we're starting to see that reckoning right now in what many are calling the esports winter, as in 2018 alone, there were $4 billion or more invested in esports, and now people are finally saying, okay, how do we get back some money on our investment? And that leads me to the question for you. what makes an esports org profitable? Where are the revenue flows?
Right. Yeah, I mean, you have the obvious revenue streams, like corporate partners. Like we work with Lenovo League, obviously, and it's also our naming rights partner, a fantastic partner, and multiple other great partners. So you'll see the sponsorship models. There's different revenue streams, including digital items like Counter-Strike stickers and other types of in-game items. Like for instance, Rocket League, they allow you to work with a corporate partner to brand the in-game card. That adds a lot of unique value. There's revenue shares from the leagues you take part in. Like we're in the Louvre agreement and Blast and other programs. And it's a really complicated subject once you really start diving into it. But the revenue streams have diversified over the years. I think the idea behind the franchise is like Overwatch and Call of Duty and LTS and some other things may not be panning out exactly as they anticipated, but I did always like the idea that the teams, the players, and the leagues are in this together. We need to collectively figure out how to drive revenue. We have the eyeballs, we have the core demographic that advertisers want to work with. But I think the thing that we've struggled more than anything over the last, call it 7 years, has really been properly monetizing the product. I know Richard Lewis speaks to this a lot, and I love Rich. I've known Rich a long time, and he gets on the fans like, you're not willing to pay $3 to watch a tournament or whatever. You want everything served on Twitch or Kick for free, but then you're mad when this happens and that happens and this happens. And it is a core fundamental issue with this business, and we need to properly figure out how to monetize. And I know people that are general fans and love playing the games. I'm a gamer, obviously, and just love watching, Elige get aces or whatever their favorite game is. They don't care about the business side. But the problem is, without the business side, Elige and wonderful players like him are not getting the big salaries. They're not being flown around the world. They're not getting $25,000 tickets. Like, none of this works at a global level that's really compelling to a larger fan base without the business side. And part of me, and I keep going down these rabbit holes, but part of me, quite frankly, if I had one disappointment to call it the last 5 or 6 years, is how much time I spend on corporate stuff and how much time I spend on the business stuff. Like, I'm a fan at heart. Anyone who's seen me at these events, like, I get into it. Like, I love watching competitive gamers, and it's really like part of the core of who I am. But there's also realities. Like, if I can't pay the rent and I can't pay my players and I can't buy plane tickets and these other things, everything crumbles really quickly. So while I completely understand why, a 20-year-old fan might have zero interest in the business side of esports, it all goes hand in hand, and we need to all be rowing the same direction when it comes to business and revenue.
Yeah, what people need to realize, if they don't already by now, is that he's a much better player because he doesn't have to worry about the other finances in his life, because he's able to solely direct himself to playing this game, and he has the luxuries of most of the other things financially in his life are taken care of because of the salaries. We're able, as fans, to witness even better gameplay. If he had to spend an extra couple hours doing some menial task that now the funds in his life allow him to just kind of skip by, this is a better product, a better entertainment.
Absolutely. And let me jump in there. I think there's also been a false illusion for many years that teams are just these organizations, bathing in cash money and it's falling out of the sky, whatever meme you want to use, when in the reality is, the reality is the teams are squeezed between the game developers who make literal Mount Everest of cash.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And quite frankly, the pros who justifiably and understandably are getting these, pretty nutty salaries. And I'm not saying they don't deserve that, but the teams are always squeezed in the middle. So they've gone out and raised venture capital and other things. But now we're starting to see that kind of come back around, where investors and others are like, hey, where's the return here? Like, why are these franchise leagues not producing? Like, why is there such a burn rate 5 years into my investment? Like, what is the path to profitability? How can you create sustainability? And the teams are squeezed. So I think that's definitely part of the natural phase and evolution of ecosystems and markets. But right now it's tough sledding out there for sure.
And that actually leads me to a pressing matter in the Counter-Strike space, which is that you've already mentioned the fact that you guys are a partnered team. You're with ESL, you're a Louvre Agreement team, you're with Blast as well. But with Valve in 2025, they talked about how they want to dissolve all these types of part ownership programs in these franchise leagues. And for Complexity, you guys have at sometimes fielded a roster that would have been strong enough by merit alone to have punched up. You know, you guys have been top 10 multiple times, and you guys would have earned that spot. But there's other times when you guys probably had a less competitive roster. Usually it's one where you're going through switches between players and kind of pivoting from the European roster you had to the North American roster. And in those moments, you probably benefited because you guys still got the reps in Tier 1 competition. So when those leagues dissolve, what do you think the impact is going to be on Complexity?
That is a really fantastic question. We could probably do a podcast just on this topic alone. And this is where the nuances of esports can become really challenging, because if you look at traditional sports leagues, these leagues are formed and you have a slot and you are sitting at the table collectively. You might be dealing with, say, a players union or whatever for the players, but everyone's kind of at the table. In esports, someone owns the football, which is really a first in kind of global sporting entertainment, and it adds a lot of nuances. As a lawyer and businessman, I completely respect the fact that Valve wants to protect its IP and Valve wants to shepherd that IP in a way they feel is best for Valve. Makes sense. But I also, when I read some of the sentiment on Reddit or HLTV or just where the fans are talking in chat.
You read HLTV comments.
Yeah. Some days I feel like whipping myself over the back. No, I'm kidding.
Okay.
But
Just making clear.
I always try to stay in the forums. Sometimes I comment more than others, but I always need to keep my finger on the pulse of what do the fans think. Like, I care what they think. Like,
totally.
Ask anyone who goes on Reddit. They've seen me post on there many times, and obviously I stay out of everyday conversation and hot button issues. But yeah, it's really important to me. And I think there was a sentiment well, these teams, Liquid and EG and Complexity and they got together with Louvre, and it was an anti-competitive idea where we'll just get a permanent spot in the league, and then our competitive teams, they won't have this spot. And gamers tend to be cynical, and they tend to want to give negative motivations or ascribe negative motivations when they're not really there. And honestly, it was more the idea of what I was referring to earlier, is the teams get squeezed from both sides at all times. And we're trying to build sustainable business. We want to sit down with like-minded leagues and be like, how can we do this together? And it's not necessarily any one moment. What roster do you have? Oh, we want you to be a partner team. What roster do you have? No. It's bigger than that. It's like, how do we bring in like-minded people that have business acumen? How can we develop products together? How can we better market together? How can we increase the fan growth and activation and interaction together? Let's get on the same team and build this together, and then let's share the revenue, let's share the upside. Like, let's do it collaboratively, and the players get a cut. And that was the idea. And I understand, like, if you're one of the teams that's not sitting at that table, you're like, hey, I want to invest in a Counter-Strike team, and it's unfair, this team isn't very good right now, and my team's actually better than this team, but they're in the league because they have this slot. I get that. I've been on both sides of that equation. I think the larger issue is we have to solve for some of the economic challenges that are really plaguing the ecosystem. I personally wish I could have had a sit down with Valve to kind of present both sides of this, and it's still, I think, an ongoing conversation. I think Valve is understanding of where we're at. The collective teams have invested tens and tens of millions of dollars to support this ecosystem, pay players to be an important part of everything that's going on, for example, in the Counter-Strike world. And to be honest, we got hit out of left field with this. There were, I think there could have been a little more conversation, but I think those conversations are happening now. But just to the average fan, I want to say there's not always these evil motives like, oh, well, let's just get together and we'll be members, and then those teams are screwed. It was never meant to be like that. It's more like, let's find organizations that have a proven track record in this game, that care about this game, that have business acumen, that have real functioning communities, and let's try to get on the same train, and let's try to grow this thing together rather than the Wild West sporadic scattered craziness that we've had where no one was really winning. That, at least from my perspective, I can't speak for everyone, was the underwriting philosophy of why these things were formed. It was like we could all do this better together. We can create a better product with better marketing and more revenue streams if we're all working together and go from there. So it'll be interesting to see how all that plays out. And like I said, we could do a podcast about that topic alone in the Counter Strike ecosystem. Yeah, it's crazy times.
I would say that for a lot of people, everybody is familiar with the fact that you guys have this secured slot, but I think it goes beyond just you having a chance to show yourself in tier 1 competition regularly because you have that slot.
Yeah.
I know that there's a financial component with it as well, and I don't think that there is the most public clarity regarding what that incentive is to be part of the league, because obviously when you invest that much into purchasing a slot, you want some sort of return. Would you mind, is there any way you can share what sort of revenue you're finding? Because we were talking about different revenue streams and all that. What sort of revenue stream you get from being a partner team?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a very good question, and I think it's a justified question. I always have to be careful with these things. Again, back to the business side, like anytime you're in a business relationship, there's NDAs and there's a lot of other people at the table, and it's not my position to kind of be going into those details.
Okay.
And then I get angry messages as soon as this drops on YouTube. But at a high level, yeah, there's revenue sharing and there's collaborative marketing and trying to improve the product and collaborating with the players and getting their feedback on the product and trying to create a win-win-win for the league, the players, the teams. And that was kind of the genesis of why the programs were set up. Now, I don't think it's necessarily going to be a death knell. We want to, and of course we have to honor what Valve's wishes are in this. Are there business arrangements and marketing that can still be done and with player interaction and everyone still winning? I mean, I think a lot of really smart people are investigating that right now while still honoring Valve's rules around their game and slots or whatever. And that's very much an ongoing conversation. I've been dealing with Valve and Counter Strike and this world for 20 years now, and I'm very grateful that Valve is engaged on the level they are. And when I say the level they are, you see some developers who've got so into their esports ecosystem that hasn't always worked out really well, has it?
Right.
I think if I was like put in charge of running the esports division of a major developer, there is a balance where you want to be supportive, you want to be providing in-game revenue opportunities, you want to be making sure the players are taken care of, making sure the fan experience is taken care of. But there's also a benefit to having open circuits and old school LAN events that are possible and some of these other things. So I think Valve does a pretty good job of riding that line. It's been interesting, being in the Counter Strike universe the last 20 years, but I'm really optimistic with the launch of CS2 and everything that's going to be surrounding that over the next 5 years.
How much would it help this ecosystem for orgs and players if Valve actually extended the sticker money to just teams that qualified for the RMR?
Anytime you can extend, let me say it this way, anytime you can offer an organization and a player the opportunity to have digital items in a game like Counter-Strike, you are directly benefiting them. I absolutely get like, hey, let's make the major special where the only way you get your IP or your signature for a player in the game is if you qualify. It makes it aspirational, it makes it exciting. But yeah, I'm a big believer in collaborating with the IP holders, the game developers and publishers, so that the teams and the players and the other stakeholders have more revenue streams and offer more unique products to their fans too. Does that mean that 10,000 Counter-Strike teams and 50,000 Counter-Strike players should all have their stuff in the game? No, of course not. But I'm always open to broader and then let the free market decide, like, hey, this team's more popular. They're going to make more revenue, or that player's more popular.
Stay right here is where we end this.
But the more people that can eat at the table at the tier 1 level, I'm for it.
I want to talk more about complexity and the transition you guys had a couple of years ago where you were acquired by the Dallas Cowboys, and now you've kind of, you
Yeah.
tweaked your logo a little bit. It's like, reminiscent of the Dallas Star
Yeah.
or the Cowboys logo it is.
Yeah.
And I want what sort of resources has that acquisition provided you?
Man, it's been a crazy ride. I gotta be honest with you. Again, I think just that question we could do a whole podcast. First, let me say, like, working with the Cowboys organization and the Jones family and our other investors at the time, the Goff family, it's been one of the greatest honors of my life. We've learned so much from being associated with them and working with them. What we built out here, I'm sitting on their campus. This campus is a couple $1 billion. It's got like this huge stadium over there and office buildings and a hotel and a sports therapy hospital. When we came here, I set out to build what I call esports 3.0. It was kind of the evolution of player care and training. For example, our players, we'd provide luxury apartments about a quarter miles away from here, so they didn't have to live in a game house and constantly be surrounded by their teammates. You could, bring home, your partner or parents could come visit, and you'd have privacy. We were making sure we covered their nutrition, where they were eating at the Dallas Cowboys training table, getting the same nutrition food
Laying down
as Cowboys
smoke.
players. Like, there's a whole cafeteria just for Cowboys players. There's a gym on the property to get free gym access. They're expected to be working out. We have a sports therapy hospital on the property. You can't even make this up. They get to go over, get any preventative, reactive medical care, and make sure they're getting the best medical care. Then they come over here to the Lenovo Legion Esports Center, and we've got some really advanced technology in here. We can pump in crowd noise. We can do anything with this computerized lighting system. A lot of teams like the boot camp here, and of course, we've got the best internet, which is centrally located in the United States for a competitive advantage. Hell, we even have a giant battery backup, so if our teams are in a game and we lose power to a storm or something, they keep gaming and they come out of the room. They don't even know that the power's been out for a couple hours.
Wow.
Like, we've gone to great lengths to really build one of the most advanced training and player support systems anywhere in the world. And of course, we have our mental coaches, because mental health is one of the most pressing issues in esports, and it's incredibly taxing to live the life of a pro gamer with all the travel and everything else. So we built all this out, and we're extremely proud of it. And of course, 2020 came along and derailed the juggernaut Counter-Strike roster, which was incredibly disappointing after how hard we worked to put that together. But hey, the pandemic, was global, and everyone went through their own things during that time. On the back of that, we did an all-stock transaction and made us part of the GameSquare family, and which we are today. And things are always kind of in flux, and you're always trying to figure out what's best for moving forward. And of course, we did align with our sister company, the Cowboys, and we're still honored to have different collaborations and associations with them. I think there's love both directions there. I'm curious, so whoever's in the comments on the video, let me know if you like the blue or you like the old red and black. You can tweet at me and post here on Maui's YouTube. But it's been a crazy ride, and I don't think the ride's necessarily over. This is the first 20 years, and I've definitely got a lot of gray hairs and probably a few ulcers I'm not aware of yet. But it's been an amazing ride. If you would have told me in 2003 you're going to be sitting on the campus of the Dallas Cowboys, you have flown in Jerry Jones's helicopter and had a gigantic gaming event in this indoor arena across the street, I probably would have chuckled a little bit. But it's been fun. I feel very, very blessed, as do my coworkers, many of which have been with me over a decade, to have experienced this, to have learned from the most valuable sports franchise in the world, and hopefully we're able to continue taking what we've learned and build a brand that people can get behind, build a brand that people are excited about, and build a brand that's multi-generational. Nothing makes me happier, I think, in this business than when people show up with young children and be like, I was a Complexity fan 15 years ago, and here's my son or my daughter, and we want to get them a Complexity shirt. Like, that's multi-generational, and that's when esports becomes more of a traditional sport, and that's proof that we've built something meaningful.
Yeah, I've actually said this publicly a few times, mostly on stream or just in smaller conversations here and there, but the fact is that when I was getting into the Counter-Strike space myself, it was around the same time as, like, a little bit before CGI and then CGS following that.
Yeah.
And
I'm
the-
impressed you remember CGI, man. That's a footnote right there.
I went
boy.
to it. I went to CGI.
Oh, no way. Tim.
Yeah,
That's
I was in the
awesome.
audience for CGI. Actually, if you look
Yeah,
through a
that was
YouTube
the
video,
famous,
you can see me.
Jaguar, What's Up
Yeah.
Now Suites. That's from there. Yeah, I was
Yeah,
there.
exactly.
I was
And
there.
the fact is that a lot of the orgs at that time have kind of fallen off. Like Team 3D was it was basically, if you were a North American Counter-Strike fan, you're basically either a Team 3D fan or you were a Complexity fan. The other franchise teams that were made at that time, like Carolina Core, Chicago Chimera, they were just kind of made up for the league a little bit. But Team 3D
Yeah,
and
they were
Complexity, like everybody knew that these were the real deal because they were there before, and
Yeah.
you guys have stood the test of time. So congratulations on just getting the acquisition from the Cowboys. I'm sure that was like just a huge deal for you. Like how did they approach you on this whole thing starting?
I'd been from about late 2014 through early 2017 or so. I've been out kind of on the investor roadshow, you call it. Groups like C9 and others had really come into some meaningful capital and were quickly pricing us out of the market. Like if I was paying make up numbers, if I was paying a Counter-Strike player $2,500 a month, my competitors were coming in and offering 10 grand a month. So even though we're pretty good at identifying and developing talented players, if you spend all that time and energy doing that, and then someone just comes along and they can afford 4x what you're able to afford to pay them, you become a C team really quickly. You become kind of a AAA ball club, if you will, and that's not the intention that we had. So we set out. Man, I met Elon Musk. It was pretty cool. I met the Cronkies. I met so many big sports owners, and we were trying to figure out what would be best for us, what was the right fit. And Travis Goff was actually introduced to me, and the Goff family here in Dallas are friends with the Jones family. And he said, "Hey, we're kind of interested in making an investment in esports." And the more we talked, the more I could tell we were aligned. And they flew me out here, and I toured this facility called The Star. And I was just so blown away by this facility. There's tours and things you can find online that I instantly knew this was the Esports 3.0 that I wanted to build, that this was the right group to build it with. And this is the brand I wanted to build it alongside. And yeah, that's kind of how all that went down. It's been a surreal ride, and like I said, I feel incredibly blessed to still be here, and I'm really grateful to all the people that have invested in this brand, the people that have worked their tails off and devoted their adult lives to this brand, and of course, I'm super appreciative to the fans because the fans and their interaction and their support, whether it's on social or Reddit or buying a shirt or showing up in the Discord, the fans are the jet fuel to any brand like this. You see it all around the world. The biggest brands, the biggest influencers, where do they get their jet fuel? It's their fans. If you can drop a video in your Mr. Beast, you get 25 million views. Like it's the people that follow Mr. Beast, that are engage with Mr. Beast, that create his market value and create the amazing brand that he's created. If you have a sports team, you see this even in franchise leagues like the NBA or the NFL. Like technically they're all equal, but like you said earlier about Team 3D and Complexity, there's groups that have way bigger fan bases, and you see their hoodies and you see their shirts everywhere. The fans need to understand how much people like me appreciate them, because without you, we're all just kind of shouting into the void. So it's been a crazy ride, and I'm very, very grateful to all those people I just mentioned, especially the fans.
Yeah, and I think it's worth noting that you say you're shouting to the void, but I truly do believe that even if there weren't all of this Dallas Cowboy acquisition, all the money that's flowing in, you would still be there because you were. You were there when there was practically no money on the table. And I actually did want to ask you, like, I'm sure you, like you said, you were studying, you were in law school, you ended up making this pivot, and you could have definitely, given how hard you've worked in this space, if you had devoted yourself to law, you could have probably been a top tier lawyer. You could have made tons on it. But what were like early signs that this had potential to be something in your eyes? Like, was there ever a moment where you were like you committed pretty early to this space and it didn't seem financially justified? Now it's probably a little bit better, but just a little bit, you know?
Oh man. when I started Complexity, we were lucky enough to have a couple small sponsors and some headsets and keyboards and things like that. So I was paying everything. I was building a law firm and taking all the profits that I should have kept and shoveling them into Complexity. The tune, I don't know. Back, it doesn't sound like much money now, but it sure was when it was my own money back in 2004 or 2005. I put over half a million of my own money into building Complexity in the early years while expanding my law firm. And then I had Allie, my daughter, and we had Jordan, my son. And at that point, I had sold Complexity to News Corporation, DirecTV for the Championship Gaming Series. So I was working my 5 law firm locations Monday through Friday, and most every weekend, Friday night, I'd fly to LA to run the Los Angeles Complexity for the weekend. And even when I was home, I was on the computer doing the Complexity stuff after stuff, the legal stuff, so I'm working 80, 90 hours a week with 2 young kids. And that was obviously not sustainable. So my wife and I, she's an amazing woman. She's like, if you want to go in this esports thing, you think it's going somewhere, you think it's gonna be worth it, then let's go all in. Let's move up to California and let's build this brand. And so I sold my law firm, moved to California in May of 2008. But for any old timers watching this video, you'll remember in the summer of 2008, the economy imploded. And a week after my birthday, a week after my wife's birthday, which is tomorrow, we got notice that Championship Gaming Series had been closed down. So I'd sold my law firm, I'd sold Complexity, I'd moved my family across the country, and I find myself unemployed in a state that I'm not licensed to practice law in.
Oh my goodness.
Funny enough, man, next week is the 15-year anniversary of that phone call. So yeah, that's what you want to go to if you want to chase your dreams, and you got to sacrifice time, you got to sacrifice money, you got to sacrifice a lot. And then off the back of all that, my family was urging me to give up on this ridiculous esports idea, to go back, be a lawyer, live a practical, normal life. And against the best advice of all the people that loved me, I bought the IP back for Complexity and started all over in January of 2009. I was doing with Jason Bass, a friend of mine, Ellis Conroy, a friend of mine. I bought in. I'm like, I can't do this myself. I have 2 young kids. I got to figure out how to pay the bills now. I was basically broke. Like, I'd gone all in, and now I don't have a job. But those were some really, really painful, difficult days. But together we managed to get it back built and running on, this is the Twitch era and the StarCraft 2 era, and we were back competing with EG, which at that point, because they weren't in the Championship Gaming Series and some great management by Alex Garfield, had built a massive brand, and then Intel and, all these huge companies and all this money. So we had to go head to head with that Goliath of an American brand way back in, 2009, 10, 11, 12. And rebuild the brand from scratch. Shit, I didn't even have a website or a single player or staffer under contract when I got the intellectual property back. And then we did that up until 2017 when we did the deal here. So I always encourage people to chase their dreams and to really get after it, whatever your dream might be, esports or otherwise. But you gotta know, like, taking the path less traveled and going and doing those things, it comes with scars, man. It comes with tears, and people will see like the great moments when you're on a video flying in Jerry's helicopter, or when you're hoisting a trophy, or whatever. You always see that meme. It's like you see the top of the iceberg. You don't see 95% of it's below. It's the work, it's the hours, it's the tears, it's the business meetings, it's the investor roadshow, it's working with that player who's calling at 3 in the morning, having a breakdown. It's those other thousands of things that really go into trying to accomplish anything in this life. I think of Counter-Strike players and other competitive gamers quite often, and I try to identify like what are some of the core traits that make people successful. I'm a student of history, and I'm a student of success and successful people, and I read a lot of books, and I've worked with a lot of gamers. And I think, at least for men, there's a certain aspect of, at least in some aspects of your life, you have to be an alpha. Way back in the day, men in particular, and I'm not saying anything negative about it. I'm speaking from my experience as a man. Like the hunters would go off and leave their loved ones behind, and they'd go off and they'd take risk, and they would chase down these animals. The alphas would bring home the food, and collectively, the tribe would prosper. And I think when it comes to competitive gamers, there needs to be a little eye of the tiger. There needs to be what I call a little fire in the belly. There needs to be like, hey, this is not an easy lifestyle. Like I could put 15,000 hours into this game and travel the world and still not really get to where I want to be. And it's the same for business, and it's the same for a lot of things. Like if you don't have this hunger and this passion and this alpha and this hunter inside you, it's unlikely you're going to be able to achieve your dreams, and it's unlikely you're going to be at the top of an esport. It's unlikely you're going to be at the top of a podcaster. And you can study lots of people across different ecosystems and different cultures and different careers. I think you're going to find some similar traits there. So I guess when I was younger, maybe I had that fight, and I hope I still do, because I don't think I'm quite done here just yet.
I'm sure you still do. First of all, a lot of things to address there. I do hope you're using the Dallas' resources to make sure that you're taking care of yourself too, because it seems like you have a lot of great facilities for mental welfare, and hopefully,
Yes.
you're seizing those opportunities. Second thing is that was incredibly inspirational, and I hope everybody takes that to heart, that you really do have to go out and seize it, regardless of your industry, and that applies to everybody out there. And third thing, you mentioned it briefly there, but it is a very timely and sensitive topic, the fact that Evil Geniuses that you brought up, they were such a powerhouse in the esports space, and lately it has been a very steep decline for them. I want to know from your perspective, more, even just kind of feelings about that, to see a legacy brand like Evil Geniuses that has now nosedive and is essentially crashing. What does this feel like, since you've kind of came up with them at the same time too?
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, I think the OGs are sad. I think people have been around for a long time, even pre the latest version of EG, are sad to see the brand. It definitely appears to be struggling, and there's a lot of uncertainty about what that course might be, and I certainly don't pretend to know what their plans are. You just hate to see such a legendary brand going through tough times. I have a lot of thoughts about what might have happened or whatever. I've learned over the years, I'm so far from perfect. I try to be really careful not to throw stones.
Okay.
Because at least part of my house is glass. I got windows. So, I think there's definitely strong opinions out there. Some of which are justified, some might not be.
How about like on
not
a
for me to judge, I think.
Okay. Yeah, I would have just said, like, on a macro level, is there anything you would have noticed about it, or anything like with the org, or actually, you know what? If you want to just express like the sentimental side of it, like, yeah, you were saying like the OGs are really like it does suck to see this brand just fall off. Like that.
Even though they were one of our staunchest competitors, and at times it was quite aggressive competition back in the day. Like I'm still good friends with Alex Garfield to this day, and I know so many people that have worked in that brand, and I know what it means to them. And if you've been around esports long enough, like the Evil Genius brand means something to you. I certainly hope that this isn't the end of that journey, and I doubt it is. At least I think maybe somebody else would pick it up if the current ownership group decided to move out. I have no idea what their plans are. It's a bit frustrating, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think from what I'm able to ascertain on the outside looking in, they were given a lot of resources. They spent some money. Remember they bought that NRG roster? Like, I know what that costs, and they weren't messing around. They had a war chest of capital to go out and build something extraordinary and really do cool stuff. What happened isn't for me to really speculate, and especially as they're my competitor. But it's unfortunate, and I do think it's one of the signs of the difficulties that we're in right now. Is teams are compelling businesses, but if we can't properly figure out how to monetize them and show owners and investors and partners, like there is a future here. There is something that we're all working towards, and it's going to be sustainable and a profitable business. Yeah, we've got problems. I've said it 1,000 times, and I'll say it 1,000 more. Revenue generation is one of the biggest issues in esports. It's not the passion, it's not the expertise, it's not the size of the audience, it's not the relevancy of the content. Um, we need to all get together. We all need to continue to figure out new and unique ways to make money. And the fans might not like all of them. Like the
Mhm.
first one that comes to my head is like the NFTs, right? First thing that pops in my head because there's been different NFT projects that have been tried, and people have tried to figure out how to monetize in the Web3 and blockchain world, and a lot of fans are immediately just like, oh, what are you doing? This sucks, and I don't like this, or with sponsorships. Maybe a group gets a sponsor, and then there's, oh, why are you working with them or whatever? Here's the truth. Like, here's the reality. We all love gaming, or at least, well, maybe not everyone in this business. We can get on about grifters, but there's a lot of us in management and involved with these organizations who genuinely love gaming. Every single person out in this office, I can promise you, genuinely loves gaming. But we got to make money. Like
Mhm.
we have to create a sustainable business, or at least on the tier one competitive scene, none of it works. So I just I hope we can get some understanding from the fan base. I hope we can get some understanding that we have to try some new things. We have to try new revenue streams. And if we don't, like a lot of the teams you love are going to go away. A lot of the players aren't going to be able to get salaries they need to support themselves, and they're going to go away. A lot of things won't work if we can't better figure out how to monetize.
Yeah, and I actually have a question about your strategy with monetization in that when you were trying to build the Juggernaut and you were trying to put together the best roster that you could, you guys in, what's it, around 2019, you signed Config, you signed Poison, you brought Blame on a little bit after that and everything. And I think that was, for a lot of people, a big shift for Complexity, which had stayed such a devoutly North American org for such a long time. You were pretty much only, I think there would be like a couple, maybe there were a couple imports here and there over the course of its history, but primarily speaking, it was practically just an NA core team, and you guys swapped over to being a European core eventually. What kind of decisions went into that made you value having the most competitive roster over having the most competitive North American roster?
Yeah, that's a great question. And obviously, when you're making these decisions in the time, there's always a multitude of factors that go into them. The short, easy version at that time was I was sick of frickin' losing, and I wanted to go kick some ass.
Okay.
And obviously, I love America, and right now we're very devoted to trying to support the American scene. Um, but we were over, I think it was, we were in Berlin, team, all great guys. I had the famous Juggernaut tweet. I just reached the end of my rope. We've been training, we've been working, we've been trying different roster combinations. We were doing everything we could to try to kind of build a NA-based type of roster that could be damaged. We did have some success. We made the video Complexity Resurrection around the run to the London Major, but it wasn't good enough. I wanted to be number one in the world. I wanted to go kick people's asses, and I'd had enough. Where we're an organization. We didn't buy an Overwatch, thank goodness. We didn't buy into some of these other different super expensive franchise leagues, even though we had opportunity and we had capital at our disposal. Counter-Strike was a game we decided this is our North Star. Like, this is our biggest game. Of course, we're in some awesome other games, but that was the big boy. So I went to our board and I'm like, I want to build something special. I want to go out and galvanize our fan base. I want to give people a reason to really get excited again. And for the record, I think I accomplished it. If it wasn't for COVID, we were going to number one, and we were going to win a string of events. Like, I was there. I know this business pretty well, and there's certain aspects of every team that need to be handled just right. And we had that team pre-COVID. We had it in a groove, and with Owen on the come up, Poison about to pop off. I mean, Blame F speaks for himself. Config speaks for. I mean, Rush, just that solid backbone. That team was going to number one, and we were going to be hoisting trophies. And then Bulgaria. You got a young kid from Nebraska. You've got like we did our very best to hold that together. While people are living in hotels for months on end. I mean, poor Obo and Rush living over in the European hotel for months. There was one point it got so bad we had to get them private jet to fly them to a boot camp because you didn't even want people on flights if you could get a flight. It's like we went above and beyond it in everything we could, but understandably under those conditions and our lack, we didn't have the ability to be hands-on like if we were training them primarily in our facility and really being involved with them and speaking to them each day and like building and molding this thing as we had intended. It went off the rails, and that was one of the biggest disappointments I've had in esports probably in the last 10 years because we worked really, really hard to assemble that roster and spent a shitload of money. And I feel we succeeded in we won Blast online, Blast Spring, and right when we were about to pop off, it was kind of taken from us. So that'll always be one of my big what ifs and disappointments. But yeah, for the record, that team was going straight to #1, and we were going to make a run. A lot of people lost a lot more during that period than a Counter-Strike roster for sure. But yeah, so there were different reasons why we built that roster. The main reason was I want a reason to galvanize our fans and our partners and really be exciting, and I want to go kick ass in Counter-Strike.
Yeah, that's the showing you guys had in spring 2020 groups for Blast. I think that was played in London. You guys were kicking ass. You guys looked really good on LAN, and it is a shame that you guys had to go through so much in terms of. I mean, the main thing that I just remember so much from that year is seeing Rush and Obo just in a dark room together, or like just playing like on these webcams. Yeah, it was.
Yeah,
it was tough. I do want to talk about one guy that was on that roster that is now like playing some incredible Counter-Strike, because I'm sure that he was a guy that you were interacting with quite a bit, is Blame F, and I know like people were talking about behind the scenes this might be the most expensive player in Counter-Strike at the time.
Oh, he's expensive.
Okay.
And he's worth it. He's a great guy.
Yeah. What do you think, or what have you gained from just getting to work hand in hand with him? Because I'm sure there was a nice like back and forth with information.
I mean, we were obviously communicating from across the pond, and I was at that time trying to recruit Alexi B to be IGL, and Blame was going to come on and just play as a fragger. And I got to the point, I'm literally over here at the gym one day, and I'm talking with Alexi B, and we're going back and forth, and I could tell he was waffling. This was, I think, probably like a Tuesday, like 11 a.m. my time, and I could tell he's waffling. And I came over to the office, and I met with a couple of my managers, and I said, this kid's going to waffle, and he's going to flake. He's going to take another offer. And I'm like, get me a plane ticket. I'm going to Helsinki. So I literally drove my car home. Our director of ops, Scott Ford, followed me. I threw a bunch of shit in a bag, and he drove me to the airport, and I hopped on a plane and flew to Helsinki. And did my damnedest to convince Alexi B to come be our IGL. But on that, I failed, unfortunately. But my next flight, I'm like, hell, I'm already over in Europe. I hopped another flight and went over and met Blame. And I'm like, I'm coming. I'll be there tonight. He's just like, WTF? Like, what the hell? Is this guy crazy or what?
Yeah.
So he met me in my hotel, and we went to dinner. We hung out for a few hours, and he's like, look, this is what it's going to take. Like, moving to America is a big deal, da-da-da-da. And I'm like, all right, like, what's your price? And basically had a handshake from there. And I'm like, I hope Alexi comes. If he doesn't, you're my IGL. He's like, I got you. And the rest is history. So yeah, there's a story for your viewers. And again, sometimes the things that you need to do if you really want to be the best and you really want to go the extra mile, you gotta you got like a schedule laid out for the whole day, and you're doing your gym time, and next thing you know, you're on a flight to Helsinki. So the joys of esports.
That's fantastic. I don't even know if I've heard anything like that with a CEO like maybe a manager would make that flight, but you're the CEO of the damn company. You went personally to both these guys to try to convince them.
Yes.
That's okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah, the level of dedication there is crazy. And also, you'll kind of hear about that stuff in traditional American sports, but it's like a flight across the country maybe, but you're flying to a whole other continent. Like that's okay, yeah, really admire.
Things I'm willing to do for this company, man. But you have to want it. Like, I've had multiple conversations, even with like sponsors or whatever, in different corners of the world. Like, I gotta be on a flight to Sydney. Like, you want me in London tomorrow? If you're not willing to do that, and you don't set up your life and prepare your loved ones, like, hey, this is what we're doing right now. Like, Dad might not be around much. Dad might be on a plane to Paris tomorrow. I think you're not.
Oh, so you're getting
preparing
Zywoo. So
your
you're getting Zywoo.
family.
Is that what you're saying?
Oh yeah, I actually asked Vitality one time, like, what's the price, and they kind of laughed and like, I don't even think we could come up with a price. This was around that same time actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Nicholas and everyone over at Vitality, they're good friends, and I went over and toured their headquarters and joked about stealing Zywoo from them. It's all part of the fun.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, Vitality seem like they're doing stuff really well too.
Yeah, they run a fantastic organization.
Yeah, consummate professionals. Let's move forward then to what you guys are working with now, because there was another cool little, I'd say, behind the scenes sort of shuffle going on where the rumors were that Elige was joining Evil Geniuses. That is how it looked from the outside.
Yeah.
Even in your release
Hey,
video
Lurk Smoke from
where you
Team
guys
Mid, stand
grabbed
next to
him,
this.
you made fun of that fact. So how close was that actually to happen? Like, how close was he to joining you?
Oh, I mean, I don't want to speak for his business, but I think everybody knows. Yeah, it was pretty close. And a lot of times, running an organization in esports, you're always playing like a form of 3D chess. Like, not only are the pieces going this way, they're also going this way, and you're always on the phone. And it's a Jerry Maguire show. I love it.
Yes.
Sometimes it gets annoying, but I love that stuff in general. And
Yeah.
we obviously had let him and Liquid know that we
In
thought
the
it'd be a
middle
really good
of these
fit. We'd
stairs
love to
here
work
near
with him
A Lurk Smoke from
in
Team Mid, stand
conversation,
next to this
with
bench.
other
You're going to look
organizations
for
at that
this
time, and
pole here. Aim in the middle
feel
of the
really
pole, then
blessed and
W jump
excited
throw.
that it worked out for us. I had high expectations of him coming in, just as you would of anyone of Lige's caliber, but he's surpassed every expectation so far, just in humility and professionalism and work ethic and leadership. And my content team makes different comms videos sometimes on our social channels, recording the team's comms in like live competitive matches. And the one thing they came to me and they're like, JC, you gotta see this. It was from Sydney, and they're like, listen to these comms. And the thing that even struck my content team was how calm everybody was. Like, you've got all this money in the line. You have a giant auditorium full of people. You're playing frickin' FaZe, for crying out loud, and these other top teams, and they're just calm, man. Just like, yep, okay, let's roll over here, let's rotate. Like, we were just really taken aback, and a lot of that, if not all of that, comes from Elige and his consummate.
Another set lineup is go ahead and stand behind the bench, put your crosshair show, jump on the bench.
We're very honored that he's a part of our organization, man. Sometimes things don't work out, like the Alexi thing, and sometimes they do. Like
This
the
CT
Elige
is going
thing.
to use the Jane
Either
wave
way,
throwing the
you just gotta
Molotov where
pick
you get
yourself
stuck
up
into
and
this wall like
kick
this. Go ahead
claw
and
and
position
scratch
crosshair
and
like
fight
this, and then
keep
run
pushing
forward
forward.
without moving your mouse. When you reach the bench,
so
go ahead and
you
jump through.
mentioned the fact that
Another set
Elige
lineup is go ahead and
has
stand
had
behind the
some
bench.
sort of effect. Like, was that incredibly noticeable? Like, because there was
It
obviously
was almost immediate.
okay, yeah.
Almost immediate. Like, he just reset the paradigm, how you approach the game. Everything from practice to comms to attitude. Like I said, sometimes people come into an organization in a capacity, you have a certain expectation, and you're really disappointed.
Bench, put your crosshair show,
I don't
jump on the
remember the
bench,
last time
run
I had
forward.
such high
And
expectations.
another
for a
set, run
player,
forward.
and
Off
they
where
actually exceeded them almost immediately.
Fredrik,
So
live.
all those Elige fans out there, like,
Bra
yeah, he's a
Ludde,
real
fan bra
deal.
sagt där alltså.
And he's a consummate professional. Feel very, very fortunate to have him in the organization.
The exceeding expectations, just to give my input on this, like, it really, truly did. I mean, when some people saw the move for Fang for him, I think many of us just, like, analyzed the space, pundits, looked at it and said, yeah, Elige is better at these roles, but the way that the culture seemingly changed for you guys, and whereas before you read the emotions of everybody on complexity so much more obviously, like it was almost kind of what kind of Halzerk are we going to see today? Is he going to be pounding the table, or is he going to be the guy that lifts everybody's spirits? But now, I'm not going to say you guys are like flatline, but it's just seemingly more focused, more drilled.
Yeah, and I think that's a great observation, and it's something the casual fans don't really. They'll be like, "Well, he's a fragger, he's a lurk," or like they don't set up the off right, and maybe those things are true. So many other intangibles go into a successful team. Just the work ethic, the personalities, the discipline, the daily mental attitude, like solving for interpersonal problems. Like there's so many other things beyond just like, oh, he doesn't hold an angle worth of shit. It's like, yeah, anybody can see that, but it's the things you don't see. That's why a lot of times the casual fan will see this news post on HLTV or wherever, be like, holy crap. Recently, one that kind of came up was like JKS, where I think a lot of people were shocked and caught off guard.
So this
And I
one,
don't know anything about that. So what I'm about to say has nothing to do with that. It's
then
just
I
an
look for the
example of being where the average person, the average fan might be like, oh my gosh, that makes no sense. There's always 80 things going on behind the curtain. Interpersonal relationships, work ethic, homesickness, like, go on and on and on and on. And there's always a lot more going on where sometimes you'll see roster shuffles or roster changes. That makes no sense on paper strategically. It might be right, but there's a lot more going on behind the curtain.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. How about one guy that I think is starting to gain some credit for the team, but had their doubts about for some time was JT, your sole South African representative and in-game team. What has it been like working with Johnny for the time that you've had?
Really good, really good. I can genuinely say we really enjoy everyone on that roster. Of course, sometimes since there's going to be business that needs to be done, contracts and things like that. Sometimes we're not. Sometimes we're basically competitors, right? I don't know if people understand that sometimes the orgs are almost competitors with the agents and stuff with the players. It's just like the Cowboys across the street. But once that stuff gets handled, like they are just genuinely some of the nicest, most respectful, chill, cool people we've had the opportunity to work with in recent years. And JT is insanely smart, and he could be streaky, right? Sometimes he'll be like, "Holy shit, he just took over that match and he beat Astralis in overtime by himself on overpassing these things." And other times you're like, "Where is this guy? Come on, what's going on?" No, but he is just an amazing person. Match and he beat Astralis in overtime by himself on overpassing these things. And other times you're like, "Where is this guy? Come on, what's going on?" No, but he is just an